നാരായണാഖിലഗുരോ ഭഗവൻ നമസ്തേ. ഗുരുവായൂരപ്പ. Good morning and pranamam to everyone. Today we are holding our 10th session of our Narayaneeyam series. We will be starting Dashakam 6 today. We completed up to Dashakam 5 in our last session. Before we begin, we will have an invocation.
Krishna Guruvayoorappa Sharanam Gajananam Bhutaganadisevitam Kapitthajambhuphalasarabhakshitam Umasutam Shokavinashakaranam Namami Vikhneshwara Padapankajam Shuklambaradharam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarvavikhnopashantaye. Krishna Guruvayoorappa Sharanam.
Anju, can you see this call?
Not yet. Yeah, okay.
Narayana. So we are starting Dashakam 6 today. In Dashakam 5, if you remember, Bhattathiri spoke about dissolution, pralaya, and he also was addressing the creation process, how the universe that we see manifested from Bhagavan. Bhagavan himself is the universe. So Bhattathiri was in Dashakam 5 was talking about how the different elements of the universe first came from Bhagavan. And then he finally mentioned about the 14 worlds, how the Brahmanda was created by Bhagavan. So in Dashakam 6, Bhattacharya further continues in describing the Varnana of the features of the Virat Purusha. So the Brahmanda is itself Bhagavan, which is the Bhagavan's Virat Swarupam. And in this Dashakam, Bhattacharya is describing the features of the Virat Purusha and associating it with the universe that we see. That is what the focus of Dashaka 6 is. And there are some hidden meanings also in this Dashaka, which we will see as we go further. So if you remember, the essence of Dashakam 5, the key message in Dashakam 5, and that is very important to understand here, was that everything that we see around and that we cannot see, everything that we can imagine and that we cannot imagine, everything that we see around and that is outside of our of our view is all Bhagavan only, Bhagavan's body. That was the key message of Dashakam 5. And this includes all beings that we see, all the animals, plants, everything that we see, all experiences that we have in the world outside, all of that is Bhagavan. It is all coming from Bhagavan. That was the key message of Dashakam 5, and that is the Virat Purusha. Bhagavan's Virat Purusha is everything that we see around and that we cannot comprehend and imagine. They are all Bhagavan, right? So that was the key message. Now, in this Dashakam, as we discussed, this Virat Purusha, in the end of Dashakam 5, Bhattacharya mentioned the formation of the Brahmanda. So once again, to go back, the process that was there in after dissolution, it was only Bhagavan, because everything was dissolved in Bhagavan. That was the Pralaya period. And Bhagavan, during the time of creation, with Bhagavan's Icha, the Maya Shakti in him arose, the power of Bhagavan, the Maya arose. From the Maya came Kala Shakti, Karma and Vasanas. And then what did they do? They created the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, which was latent in Bhagavan in equilibrium at that time. The Maya activated the Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, and they arose in different proportions. And the universe that we see is with different proportions of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. From the Sattva, Rajas and Tamas came the Maya. From Maya came the Mula Prakriti, the universe that we see. From the Mula Prakriti came the Tattvam called Buddhi Tattvam, the cosmic intelligence. This Buddhi Tattvam, if you remember in Dashakam 5, we said that Buddhi Tattvam is predominantly Swatwik in nature. So from that Swatwik Buddhi Tattvam came the Ahankara, which is the ego, which is the total I sense, the absolute I sense, where we understand that we are Bhagavan. That sense of absolute I came from that Sattvic Buddhi Tattvam. Then with Bhagavan's own prompting from the same Buddhi Tattvam, but with tamas in predominance, came the ahangara, aham tattva, which is the ego, which is the individualized I sense that we all have. That when we associate with our own I, when we say this is my, this is when we say that this is my, I am this person, or I am this, I have this occupation. That I-ness that we all have, which is not the normal ahangara that we use in our day-to-day world. This is the ahangara that every being has, the ego that everyone has, which will make individuals. That was born from the tamasic aspect of the Buddhi Tattva. Then, but what Bhattathiri was saying was that from that ahangara came the three, the sattva, rajas, and tamas gets associated with that ahangara, and forms three types, which are the Vaikārika, which is Sattvika ahangara. Then there was Taijasa, which was the Rajasic ahangara, and then there was Tamasa, which was the Tamasic ahangara. So those were the three divisions from the ahangara. We discussed all that in Dashakam 5. Then Bhattathiri mentioned in Vaikārika, from the Sattvic ahangara came the deities, the devadas, who preside over our jnanendriyas, our karmendriyas. These are the 14 deities essentially that preside over our jnanendriyas, karmendriyas, and our andhakaranas, 4 andhakaranas. So those 14 deities were created from the Sattvika ahangara. Again, if you remember, from the same Sattvika ahangara came the 4 andhakaranas: Buddhi, Manas, Buddhi, Chitta, and Ahangara. That they all, the 4 inner instruments that we all have, that came from the Sattvika ahangara. From the Taijasa ahangara, which is Rajasic ahangara, came the 5 jnanendriyas and the 5 karmendriyas, if we discuss that. And from the Tamasa ahangara, which is the tamasic aspect of ahangara, came the Panchabhutas and the Panchatanmatras. So the Panchatanmatras came, and sequentially the Panchabhutas associates with the Panchatanmatras, and they came. So we discussed that also. And then what happened? Alone they do not have any power. All of these were created, but alone they do not have any power. So the Devadas, they did penance to Bhagavan. They prayed to Bhagavan, and Bhagavan Narayana entered into each of these. Bhagavan then he enters each of these that he created. That means he enters into the Devadas, he enters into the Tanmatras, the Panchabhutas, the Jnanendriyas, the Karmendriyas, the Andhakarana, and then he stirs them up and he creates what we see as the Brahmanda, right? And then but he ended Dashakam 5 by saying that then this Brahmanda was divided into 14 layers or 14 logas, which is, and that in those 14 logas, as we just saw, Bhagavan is reflecting, Bhagavan is shining in those 14 logas. And in that last Dashakam, last sloga of Dashakam 5, but Bhattathiri said the Virat Purusha, how Bhagavan was reflecting or shining in those 14 worlds with thousands of hands, thousands of feet, and thousands of heads. 1000 essentially means infinite, something that we cannot count. That is why the number 1000 is used. So with 1000 hands, feet, and legs, Bhagavan was shining in those 14 worlds. What does that mean? That means that everything that we can imagine in these 14 worlds, they are nothing but Bhagavan. In this current world that we see, the loga that we are in, whatever we see in this loga is nothing but Bhagavan only, Bhagavan's body only. And anything that we cannot see, comprehend also, that is also Bhagavan. So everything is Bhagavan, and that is represented by Bhagavan's Virat Rupa, Virat Purusha. And at the end of Dashakam 5, Bhattathiri, in a very beautiful way, associate this Virat Purusha as Guruvayoorappan himself. He says that this Virat Purusha is what I am seeing in front of me at Guruvayur. And he prayed to Guruvayoorappan to bless him for eradicating his sufferings, because the point is that this Bhagavan, who is the Virat Purusha, who is holding this entire universe and all the other universes that we can imagine, he is the same, because we all are part of him, because we are all part of his body. He is the same Bhagavan who can help us in our day-to-day problems and ailments that we face. So if you have problems in life, if we have ailments in our life, this is the same Virat Bhagavan to whom we need to surrender, because he is the same one who is responsible to help us from our sufferings. So that was the key message from Dashakam 5. And in this Dashakam 6, Bhattathiri is describing this Virat Purusha. Bhattathiri is going to talk about each of the features. Essentially, he's going to do Padam to Kesham Varnanam, that Padadi Kesha Varnana of the Virat Purusha. And this Padadi Kesha Varnana will be taught in this Padadi Kesha Varnana, Bhattacharya associates the Rupa of the Virat Purusha with the Brahmanda, the Logas of the Brahmanda, which is the focus in this Dashakam 6. So we'll start with Slogam 1.
एवं चतुर्दश जगन्मयतां गतस्य पाताళमीश तव पादतलं वदन्ति पादोर्ध्वदेशमपि देव रसातलं ते गुल्फद्वयं खलु महातलमद्भुतात्मन् അല്ലയോ സർവശക്തനായ ഭഗവാനെ, ഇപ്രകാരം 14 ലോകങ്ങളായി രൂപം കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന നിന്തിരുവടിയുടെ ഉള്ളങ്കാലിനെ പാതാളമാണെന്ന് പറയുന്നു. ഹേ പ്രകാശസ്വരൂപ, അങ്ങയുടെ പുറവടി രസാതലമെന്നും പറയുന്നു. അല്ലേ അദ്ഭുത രൂപനെ, 2 നെരിയാണികൾ മഹാതലമെന്നും പറഞ്ഞു വരുന്നു.
So Bhattacharya is describing the Virat Purusha now. So as we saw, the Virat Purusha is, this Brahmanda is essentially that Virat Purusha only. Whatever we see is nothing but this Bhagavan only. And that is being emphasized by describing each of those logas, connecting it with the, or associating it with the Virat Purusha. So before we look into that, we need to understand what these 14 logas are, which we have seen before in Dashakam 4 also. So the 14 logas that is described, they include Burloga or Bhuloga, where this is the loga that we can see, the physical world that we can see, and we'll see this in our next slides. So Burloga, then there is Bhuvarloga, Swarloga, Maharloga, Janaloga, Tabologa, and finally Satyaloga. Satyaloga is the abode of Lord Brahma, where Brahma resides, that is Satyaloga. These are the 7 upper worlds, these are upper logas. And then we have the 7 lower logas, which are Adala, Vidala, Sudala, Taladala, Mahadala, Rasadala, and Padala. So these are the 7 lower logas. And together they are the 14 logas, the 14 worlds that is described. This is from the Puranas, Puranic cosmology, the structure of the universe. And as we just was understanding from this Dashakam, is that this 14 logas are nothing but Bhagavan only. So the key message again in here from these logas, when we understand these logas, we need to understand that these logas are essentially physical worlds that are there outside, but also these logas are in us as well. So when we understand the slogas, we need to carefully understand that all these 14 logas are in us, are also representative of our consciousness, how our level of consciousness and our level of awareness, that is represented by these 14 logas. So Burloga, Bhuvarloga, Swarloga, Maharloga, Janaloga, Tabologa, Satyaloga, and also the lower logas, Adala, Vidala, Sudala, Taladala, Mahadala, Rasadala, Padala, they are all in us, and all of us might be in all of these logas, depending on where we are in our levels of consciousness, and that we will need to carefully understand when we understand these logas. And the key message from this Dashakam is that if you are in remembrance of Bhagavan, or if you are associated with Bhagavan, everything in this logas, in whichever loga you are, all of it you will still be ending up with freedom and moksha. So the point is that it doesn't matter in which loga you are, if you are remembering Bhagavan, or if you are in remembrance of Bhagavan and associated with Bhagavan, it doesn't matter in which loga you are, you will get freedom. That is the key message. But however, if you do not remember Bhagavan, or if you do not have Bhagavan in you, or if you are not in remembrance of Bhagavan, all of these logas will be a bondage. You will be tied to these logas. You will be suffering in these logas. So essentially that is the key message. So if you understand that this is all Bhagavan's body only, and you are also a part of that body, and any experience that you have in these logas are coming from Bhagavan only to refine you, then you will essentially attain freedom. That is moksha. That is the key message from these logas that we need to understand. But however, if you do not understand that, if you are not in if you are not associated with Bhagavan, then any of these logas will be just essentially a bondage for us. So that is the key message of this Dashakam 6. Now let's try to understand the slokas. So starting off with, Bhattacharya says, Hey Isha, O Lord, Isha means the one who is powerful over anything. Since the Virat Rupam, Bhagavan is a Virat Rupam and everything is coming from him only. So he is the powerful over anything that you can imagine. And but he says, in this manner. So before that, what happened? The Brahmanda was created, and then Bhagavan manifested as the 14 worlds. Whatever we see as the 14 worlds, as we just saw, is just a manifestation of Bhagavan only. It is Bhagavan reflecting and shining as 14 worlds. So Bhattacharya says, O Lord, the powerful one, Evam, in this manner, Chadurdasha Jagat Mayadam Gadasya, you who has manifested as the 14 worlds. The 14 worlds are just like a bhavam of Bhagavan, where everything is reflecting from him only. So that is Bhagavan's Virat Purusha. So Bhagavan, who is reflecting as the 14 worlds, Virat Purusha. Patatri now says, Tava Pada Talam, your soles, is the lower part of your feet, the lower surface of your feet, Bhagavan. Padalam Vadanti is said to be Padala. So the lower surface of Bhagavan's feet is essentially mentioned as Padala. But he further continues, Hey Deva, O effulgent one, the most auspicious one, Pada Urdhva Desham, the upper surface of your feet, the upper surface of thy feet. So the lower surface of your feet is Padala, the upper surface of your feet is Abhi Rasadalam, is Rasadala. So the upper surface of Bhagavan's feet is essentially Rasadala. The lower surface, or essentially the soul of Bhagavan, is essentially Padala. The upper surface is Rasadala. Hey Adbhutatman. So with that imagination, when Bhattacharya is imagining that form of Bhagavan, or Bhattacharya is visualizing that form of Guruvayoorappan as the Virat Purushan, that itself is a wondrous form. So he says, Hey Adbhutatman, the one who is showing this wondrous form, which I cannot comprehend, or Lord of wondrous form, he says, Te Gulfadvayam Kalu, thy two angles, Bhagavan's angles are Mahadalam, are indeed Mahadalam. So the angles of Bhagavan are Mahadala. So in this first loga, Bhattacharya is describing the three lower logas, the most lowest logas, which are Padala, Rasadala, and Mahadala. Padala is Bhagavan's lower soles of Bhagavan's feet is Padala. The upper surface of Bhagavan's feet is Rasadala, and the angles of Bhagavan is Mahadala. So we will see what these logas are quickly. We won't go into much details, and as we describe these logas, we'll try to understand what is the inner meaning of these logas. So Padala loga, which is the most lowest realm or the world. It is the deepest of the realm, so it is the most lower realm. And beneath that is the Brahmanda. Beneath that is the Brahmanda is resting on Adishesha, on which Bhagavan is laying, which is in the Karana Jalam. So the Padala is before that, the deepest of the lower realms. This Padala is home to Nagas. So it is believed that Padala is the loga of Nagas, serpents, and the associates of these serpents. The chief of these serpents is Vasuki. Vasuki is the chief serpent of the Naga loga. Now this loga, even though it is a lower loga, it is highly beautiful. It is mentioned in the Bhagavata that it is highly beautiful. It is lit with jewels. It is radiant with jewels and gems. So the serpents are holding jewels and gems in this loga, and it is extraordinarily beautiful. Therefore, so there is material associations because it's full of jewels and gems. It is materialistic in nature, and these snakes, they are represented as having many hoods. They have several hoods, and it is also represented as these snakes are all extremely angry as well. These snakes that reside in this lower loga are snakes with several heads and extremely angry. So as we understand this loga, think of our own inner nature also. We need to, that is the careful thing that we all have to do. At each loga, as we are describing each loga, understand it also as our own consciousness. How can I associate with this loga? So that is also something that is very important that we need to do. So the symbolism of this loga is that it is the deepest realm that ultimately rests upon Bhagavan. So it is the most lower realm, and since it's the soul of Bhagavan, it is still a part of Bhagavan only. This loga also represents dormant hidden energy. So there is, so if somebody is in this loga, they can still attain Bhagavan. So therefore it is lying dormant. So it is, Bhagavan is not, Bhagavan is accessible to everyone. So that is the key message. So therefore this loga represents dormant hidden energy, and there is latent awakening potential. That means anybody from this loga can also rise up to becoming a great bhakta or a devotee of Bhagavan. So there is potential in this logas, even though it is the most lower realm in the 14 worlds. That is the Padala. The next loga, just before above Padala, which Bhattathiri described as Bhagavan's feet, the upper portion of Bhagavan's feet is Rasadala loga, Rasadala. So Rasadalam, as we saw, it is the loga just above Padala loga. The Rasadalam is inhabited, it is mentioned that it is inhabited by Daityas and Danavas. So Daityas and Danavas are essentially sons of Didi and Danu with sage Kashyapa. So Kashyapa has sons with Didi and Danu, and these are the Asuras, right? And these Asuras, they are believed to reside in this Rasadala Loga. So Rasadala Loga has powerful Asuras. They show high martial strength. So there is high physical strength for these Asuras. There is also high material dominance. So there is a lot of wealth and possession, material craving. So this loga is associated with cravings, compulsions, addictions. So as we understand this loga, we can also try to understand this loga from our world that we see and how we behave in this world. So our behavior and our consciousness should be also associated with these logas. So this loga is associated with cravings and compulsions and addictions. There is always fear in this loga. So whoever reside in this loga is always in a fear, because they are fear of the divine, the Bhagavan. They are always in fear of Bhagavan. So there is a fear in them. But remember, this loga is also part of Bhagavan. There is no good and bad in this universe. Everything that we see, good, bad, positive, negative, all of that is part of Bhagavan. So if there is fear and opposition to divinity. For the people who are living in this loga, they are always in fear and they have an opposition to divinity or Bhagavan. So the symbolism of this loga is essentially, it represents egoistic power, the power with high ego that is separated from dharma. So if you see ego and power which is not in accordance with dharma, it is representative of Rasadala loga. Next is Mahadala loga. Mahadala loga is above Rasadala loga. Bhattathiri described this the Mahadala in this Dashakam as Bhagavan's ankles. Mahadala loga is also a loga that has, is a loga of snakes, serpents, many hooded snakes. And these snakes are descendants of Kadru, the snake mother, the serpent mother. And there are great snakes that we have seen in Bhagavatam, like Kuhaga, Takshaga, Kaliya, all these great snakes in the sense powerful snakes, prominent snakes that we see in the scripture, they are all residing in this Mahadala loga. So again, in this loga also, the residents of this loga, they are always disturbed by the fear. So essentially these snakes are all they fear Garuda. Garuda represents Bhagavan only, and therefore they are always living in fear of Garuda. So the basic notion of this loga is fear and anger. So residents of this loga, they essentially demonstrate fear and anger in their daily affairs. And the symbolism is that this loga represents insecurity. So it's a loga of insecurity. There is deep-rooted fear in the people living in this loga. There is paranoia, and then there is hidden aggression. So there is always aggression, there is always fear, there is always insecurity, there is again lack of divinity. That is the nature of the beings who reside in this Mahadala loga. So, and again, the key message is that these three logas, even though they are deprived of divinity, they are still part of Bhagavan, and any resident of this loga are still are Bhagavan's body only, right? And therefore there is no distinction, Veda Bhavam for Bhagavan to any of them. That's the key message. And anyone from this loga can also attain Bhagavan. That is also the key message. So Bhattathiri in this first logam described the three lower logas, Padala, Rasadala, and Mahadala. and they are described as Bhagavan's the feet. The lower portion is Padala, the upper portion of the feet is Rasadala, and the angles are Mahadala. Now we move on to the next sloka, sloka 2, describing the next slokas.
जङ्घे तलातलमधो सुतलं च जानु किञ्जोरुभागयुगलं वितलातले द्वे क्षोणीतलं जघनमम्बरमङ्गनाभिः वक्षश्च शक्रनिलयस्तव चक्रपाणे ഹേ ചക്രപാണിയായ ഭഗവാനെ, തിരുമേനിയുടെ 2 കാൽവണ്ണകൾ തലാതലമെന്നും കാൽമുട്ടുകൾ സുതലമെന്നും 2 തുടകൾ വിതലം അതലം എന്നു രണ്ടാണെന്നും അരക്കെട്ട് ഭൂലോകമെന്നും നാഭി ആകാശമെന്നും മാറിടം സ്വർഗമാണെന്നും പറഞ്ഞു വരുന്നു.
So Bhattathiri continues in describing the next set of logas. So he says, Hey Chakrapane. So Chakrapane is a very powerful word describing Bhagavan. He is calling Bhagavan as Chakrapane, who is the Lord, the wielder of the chakra. The one who holds the chakra is the Bhagavan is the Chakrapane. Chakra is Sudarshana. So Chakram means Chakrapane means the one who has chakram in his pani. Pani is hands. So the one who holds chakram in his hands is Chakrapane. Bhagavan is the one who holds the chakram. So he is Chakrapane. So this we'll try to understand this word a bit before we move forward. So Sudarshana, Bhagavan holds the Sudarshana chakra. So that's why he is called Chakrapane. Sudarshan means Su is the most radiant. Su means the most radiant and beautiful. And Darshan, so it's the most beautiful and auspicious Darshan. That is the Darshan of Bhagavan only. So the knowledge of Bhagavan or the Darshan of Bhagavan is Sudarshanam. So Sudarshana means the right knowledge, which is the most beautiful knowledge, the one which is highly illuminating, the auspicious one. That and the Darshan of that is called Sudarshana. It also means Samyak Darshana, which means the right knowledge, the right vision, the true vision, associating with truth. That is Samyak Darshan, the right perspective. And Sudarshana is giving us the right perspective. Sudarshana guided Arjuna towards Bhagavan Narayana's form, right? If you remember. So Samyak Darshanam, it is the knowledge of Brahman. So Sudarshana is essentially showing, it is Bhagavan's own Sankalpa Shakti, and it is the one that provides us the right knowledge, the right darshan. So Sudarshana. This Sudarshana represents beauty, radiance, prosperity, and all auspiciousness, which is the nature of Bhagavan. And you will see that this universe is a reflection of Bhagavan only. So this universe also represents beauty, radiance, prosperity, and all auspiciousness, and therefore it is and that is captured by this chakra. So chakra essentially also represents the universe, and it captures the beauty, radiance, prosperity of Bhagavan. So therefore it's called Sudarshana. It also represents Kala. It's that the Sudarshana chakra is also called Kala chakra. So it also represents Kalam. Kalam is not just time. We cannot just say it is time. It is also everything. It essentially means everything that is changing. That is Kalam. So Kalam includes time. It includes space, because time is changing. We have discussed this before in previous Dashakam. So time changes, space changes, our form changes. So all of this is Kala. So everything that is changing and is represented by Kala, and therefore it is the universe only. The universe is essentially changing. It is born. The universe is born. It is sustaining on Bhagavan, and it is dissolving into Bhagavan. So it is always changing. So this Sudarshana represents the changing nature of the universe, which includes the cycle of birth and death. So we discussed this in previous Dashakam also, the whole cycle of birth and death. And it's a cycle, therefore it's a circle. We are born, we die, and we are again born. So this is a cycle, right? And if you remember in the previous Dashakam, it was said that everything that we see around nothing is destroyed. It is all dissolved in Bhagavan, latent, in the Karana form. In the Karana form, the causal form, everything is dissolved in Bhagavan, and when creation happens, everything reappears from Bhagavan with his own manifestation, right? So therefore it's a cycle. It's a cycle of birth and death, where you have birth, where you have sustenance and dissolution, which all represents change. All of this is change. The change, that is one form, and that form changes to another form. So that is change. But Bhagavan is the changeless. So chakra essentially represents that change that is happening, and that change that is happening rests in the changeless, which is Bhagavan. Bhagavan, the Brahman, Guruvayoorappan is the Brahman, Krishna is the Brahman, who is the changeless, and that changeless one controls the change. Only the changeless can observe the change. We discussed this in our first Dashaka also. So this Chakrapane means the one who is controlling the change, and that is the changeless one. The changeless Bhagavan is controlling the change through his chakra, the Kala. So that Chakrapane has a very significant meaning, and that's why we spent some time discussing it. So Chakrapane, one who holds the chakra, the one who controls the changes that are happening in the world, and one who remains changeless throughout in that, and who is always there, that is Bhagavan. So, Hey Chakrapane, Bhattathiri says, Hey Chakrapane, the wielder of the chakra, Tava Jange Taladalam, your shanks, Bhagavan's shanks are essentially Taladala. So, shanks of Bhagavan are essentially Taladala. This portion of Bhagavan is Taladala. Then he says, Adaha Sudalam cha Janu. Then Sudala are thy knees. Bhagavan's knees are essentially Sudala. So if you see, the knees of Bhagavan represents Sudala Loga. Kinja Urubaga Yugalam. Moreover, your thighs, Bhagavan's thighs are Vidala Adale Dve, the two worlds of Vidala and Adala. So Bhagavan's thighs are the two worlds, Adala and Vidala. They are Bhagavan's thighs. So Bhattathiri is in this couple of slogas that described the 7 lower logas, where he said Taladalam is Bhagavan's shanks, Bhagavan's knee is Sudala, Bhagavan's thighs are both Adala and Vidala. Okay. Then he says Shonidalam Jaganam, Bhagavan's hip is Shonidalam. Shonidalam refers to earth. It is not just earth. It is Bhuloga, whatever we see as the physical world. So the world that we reside and we experience, right? That loga is called Bhuloga or Burloga. That is Bhagavan's hip. Ambaram Anganabhihi. Ambaram means sky. But he says Ambaram Anganabhihi. Bhagavan's Nabi. The navel portion of Bhagavan is Ambaram. So sky is not the right word, the English word for it. Ambaram is Bhuvarloga. Bhuvarloga represents Ambaram. So Bhagavan's navel represents Bhuvarloga. So Bhuloga is Bhagavan's hip. Bhuvarloga is Bhagavan's navel. Vakshaha Shakra Nilayacha. Bhagavan's chest. So Bhagavan's chest is Vaksha, is Shakra Nilayacha, is the Swarloga. The chest of Bhagavan represents Swarloga, Swarga, which is the abode of Lord Indra. So in the second sloga, Bhattathiri is addressing the rest of the worlds, where he first completed the 7 lower worlds, including Taladala, Sudala, Vidala and Adala. Then he goes to describing the upper worlds, which includes the Burloga, Bhuvarloga and Swarloga. We'll see what these logas are in the next slides. Starting with Taladala Loga. So Taladala is the next lower world before or on top of Mahadala Loga. Taladala Loga is described as the realm of a Danava named Maya. So Mayan or Maya Danava is the Danava who is the one who resides in this Loga, or is the controller of this Loga. So Mayan or Maya is seen in we will see Maya in Mahabharata. You will see him in Ramayana. So this Maya character is there in all these scriptures. Maya is a Danava who is considered to be a master architect. He is believed to be the engineers of Asuras. He is the one who makes magnificent creations. He has high technological power. He is the possessor of mystical technologies. He is Maya is the father-in-law of Ravana. He also is the one who created the illusionary Sabha for Pandavas in Mahabharata. There is a Maya Sabha. So that all that is coming from Maya. So you see him in these scriptures. So Maya is a possessor of mystical technologies. He he is considered to be the one who creates illusionary architectures, like an advanced engineer who creates advanced structures and magical sciences. So this logo essentially represents that. This logo is full of such things. And even if you see, our logo is also like that, right? We have master architects, we have mystical technology, we have great technologies in our logo. So whenever you understand this logo, try to connect it with our logo as well, and our level of consciousness as well. So the symbolism is that this is a logo that represents high intelligence, high technological intelligence. However, it is divorced of spiritual wisdom. So somebody with high technological intelligence but with no spiritual understanding or wisdom, that is what this logo represents. There is high technological and material brilliance. So there is again association with materialistic things. However, it needs to be actually spiritually grounded as well, but this logo doesn't have any spiritual grounding. So high technology and material brilliance without any spiritual grounding is the representation of Taladala logo. And it is, as we discussed, it is ruled by Mayadanava. The next logo is Sudala logo. The next logo that is above Taladala is Sudala. So Sudala logo, we know this logo a lot, associating with King Mahabali. We know the story very well. So it is a realm of Mahabali, who is known as Indrasenan. So Mahabali was blessed by Bhagavan Vamana, and he was made Bhagavan Narayana himself made Mahabali the emperor of this loga, which is Sudala loga, which is also a lower loga, but it is a paradoxical realm. It is a paradoxical loga. So we need to understand this carefully. This loga is high of material brilliance. There is as you can see, it's filled with material brilliance and prosperity and all that, but it is mixed with humility, devotion, and complete surrender to Bhagavan. So this is a loga which is, even though it's a lower loga, there is high material influence in this loga. There is all, but at the same time, there is humility there is devotion there, and there is complete surrender to Bhagavan. So that means that even if you are filled with material, you are in material world, right? You are filled with material things around, you can still attain Bhagavan. That is the representation of this loga. So Sudala loga is a realm of Mahabali, and Mahabali is the one who sacrificed himself. He surrendered his own self to Bhagavan. So that's the importance of Mahabali. That's why he's called Mahabali. He did the greatest bali, the greatest sacrifice, which is Atma Nivedanam to Bhagavan. That is, he surrendered his own ego and his own self to Bhagavan, right? And that true sacrifice is what Bhagavan is looking for. So when that happens, you will attain all the material pleasures and all the greatness of the material world, but you will also attain Bhagavan, right? That is why it is called a paradoxical realm, where you are in the material realm, you are associated with everything that is in the world, but at the same time, you are completely with Bhagavan also. And the greatest example of that is the Sudala loga. And in this loga, Bhagavan Narayana, Vishnu himself stands as a guard, as a doorkeeper or a protector of Maharaja Bali. That is why Bali is so important, because he essentially sacrificed himself. He gave himself to Bhagavan. That is the greatness of Mahabali. So therefore, here Bhagavan himself stands as a doorkeeper and a protector to Bali. And that is, therefore, the Sudal loga has a very high, place in this 14 logas, even though it's a lower loga. So the symbolism is that it represents true model of devotion, humility, and surrender. It represents a loga where you have true devotion, humility, and surrender. It also represents a loga where you are fully associated with all the material benefits in the world, but at the same time you are fully attached to Bhagavan. And in that scenario, Bhagavan himself will be next to you as your guard and doorkeeper. That is the example of King Mahabali and this loga, Sudala loga. Next is the Vidala loga. Vidala loga is the loga above Sudala. Vidala loga is associated with subterranean fires and powerful energies. This loga is mentioned as a loga which is filled with high material activity. That means there is metallurgy and material processing happening a lot in this loga. This loga is mentioned as a loga that creates gold. So there is high emphasis in production of gold in this loga. And Bhagavan Shiva, Lord Shiva, is the ruler of this loka. Bhagavan Shiva rules this loka. Essentially, the beings in this loka pray to Bhagavan Shiva, and they focus on creating gold and metallurgical processes. And so there is high metallurgical activity in this loka, alchemical processes in this loka. And Bhagavan Shiva resides in his form of Hara Bhava. You have heard Bhavahara names of Bhagavan. So that name of Bhagavan is associated with this loka. This loga also symbolizes hidden material power and transformative energy. So this loga is representative of material nature of the world and how material can be transformed into great things. But at the same time, this is also a lower loga where the beings are associated with material things. There is devotion. It is devoid of spiritual energy. But at the same time, Bhagavan Shiva resides as a ruler of this world. That is the Vidala Loga. And above the Vidala Loga is the Adala Loga. Adala Loga is the most upper out of the 7 underworlds, under Logas, the most upper one is Adala Loga. Adala Loga is ruled by Bela, who is a son of Maya. So we saw Maya in the Taladala Loga. The son of Maya rules the Loga called Adala. This Adala Loga is also represented as a loga of mystical powers. So the beings in this loga has mystical powers. This loga essentially represents sensual enjoyment. So there is high sensual activity, that is involvement with your senses. There is enchantment. There is illusion-based pleasures happening in this loga. So again, as we are describing this loga, we can associate it with our loga as well. How we are attached to senses, how we are attached to illusions and enchantments in the world, right? So this loga is associated with, or the beings in this loga are highly distracted. They are addicted to the material nature. They are always addicted to their senses. Seduction of senses, so the beings in this loga are seduced by the opposite sex, and therefore they are highly involved in that nature. And this loga is represented as full of material pleasures. So there is no spiritual knowledge in this loga, because the beings in this loga are highly addicted to material pleasures. The symbolism is that it represents seduction by pleasure and illusion. It also represents a loga of lack of self-control. So if somebody is unable to control themselves, that is represented as somebody who is in this Adala loga. It is also a loga that shows that there is inability to discriminate between right and wrong. Right is whatever you see as Bhagavan is the right. Whatever you see as not as Bhagavan is the wrong thing. So the inability to discriminate right and wrong is represented in the beings who reside in this loga. So that is the Adala loga. So these are the lower logas, 7 lower logas. Again, all these logas, as we said before, are part of Bhagavan only, and Bhagavan is dispassionate to every being that is there in this loga. And everyone in these logas have the right to attain Bhagavan. So that is also there. So in this several last slogas, Bhattathiri described the 7 lower logas as the parts of the Virat Purusha, which includes Adala, Vidala, Sudala, Taladala, Mahadala, Rasadala, and Padala. Now, in the next slogas, Bhattathiri is describing the logas above it, starting off with Burloga. We already saw that. So Burloga is the loga that is the upper loga, the lowermost of the upper logas. The Burloga is the physical world. It is the realm of matter and gross consciousness. That means anything that is made up of the Pancha Tanmatras and the Panchabhutas that we see as the physical world, that is represented as the Burloga. So that is the realm of matter and gross consciousness that we see around. Even though we use the term Burloga as earth, it is not just earth. It is earth and the world we see, the world that we can experience, that is Burloga. So it includes all the beings, all the living and the non-living beings in this world that we can see, that is represented as Burloga. So this loga is made up of the Pancha Tanmatras. We discussed the Pancha Tanmatras and the Pancha Bhutas in our last Dashakam, and they come from the Tamasa Hangara of Bhagavan, right? If you remember, the Tamasa Hangara created the Pancha Tanmatras and the Pancha Bhutas. This world is made of these Pancha Tanmatras and the Pancha Bhutas. So they associate with this loga. This loga is one of the highest logas. Even though it is the lower loga within the 7 upper worlds, it is considered to be the one of the best logas, or the one of the somebody should be blessed to be in this loga. Why? Because this loga balances pleasure and suffering. Here every being in this universe, in this loga, has a opportunity to attain Bhagavan. That is the blessing of this loga. So this loga balances pleasure and suffering. It also allows free will. So we have a free will. What is our free will? When something happens, how we can respond to that scenario is our free will, and that is what we should use. And the free will can be used to attain Bhagavan, right? So this loga allows free will to every being. So therefore, spiritual realization is possible in this Burloga, and you can also attain moksha. Moksha is the attainment of the right knowledge. That is the knowledge of Bhagavan. That when that happens, you are liberated, you are freed. So attaining moksha is possible for any being in this loga. This is an opportunity. They will have the opportunity to attain liberation, and that is up to them to use it using their free will. So in this loga, devotion can mature rapidly. So bhakti can be practiced in this loga, and it will mature rapidly for beings who are in this loga. It is also a loga of karma. It is called the field of action. So Bur loga is the karma bhumi. That's why it's called bhumi. So karma bhumi, where you do action. Through karma, you are able to attain Bhagavan. And that realm of karma is this Burloga. And this loga also has dharma in it. Dharma is embodying the rightness, the embodying rightness in us, that is dharma. And there will be moral testing and opportunity for moksha. So as we just described, this is a loga where all beings in this loga have the opportunity to attain Bhagavan, and they can use their free will towards that to attain Bhagavan. That is the beauty of this Burloga. So it's a physical realm, a realm of matter and gross consciousness that we can actually see and observe. And this Burloga is associated with, now as we understand these logas, as I said before, we need to understand that these logas are not just external worlds, these are logas in us. These logas reside in us. So therefore this Burloga is associated with our Mooladhara chakra. So Mooladhara chakra, which is the lowermost chakra, represents the Prithvi Tattvam, it represents grounding, it represents earth. So this Burloga is represented by Mooladhara. So somebody's Mooladhara chakra active is essentially somebody who's operating in the Burloga. And we discussed these chakras in several of our previous Dashakams. We said that the lower 3 chakras are associated with material, somebody who wants to satisfy their basic material needs, but also trying to be spiritual, that is the lower logas. Anahata chakra associated with the realization of somebody who's connected with Bhagavan, starts from Anahata chakra and goes up to Sahasrara. So we'll see. So this Burloga is associated with the Mooladhara chakra. Then we have Bhuvarloga. Bhattathiri described Bhuvarloga. Bhuvarloga is the atmospheric realm. It is also known as Pidurloga. This loga is the home of semi-divine beings. So Bhuvarloga is above Burloga. The loga just above Burloga is Bhuvarloga. It is called the atmospheric realm. This loga is home to semi-divine beings, Siddhas and Pidrukkal, we say. So ancestral spirits, they all live in this Bhuvarloga. This loga is made up of remember we said we have 5 Jnanendriyas, 5 Karmendriyas and 4 Andhakaranas, which the Jnanendriyas and Karmendriyas come from the Taijasa Hangara. The Andhakarana comes from the Sattviga Hangara, which is Vaigarika. So this Bhuvarloga is made up of the Jnanendriyas, Karmendriyas and the Andhakaranas. So what is this? It is the realm between material and the divine. Remember, this is Bhuvarloga. So Burloga was the material loga. Burloga, the earthly realm that we saw before, is the material realm where we can try to attain Bhagavan through our devotion. Bhuvarloga, let's say somebody is trying to reach towards Bhagavan, the realm between material and divinity. So you are in between that. So you are still in the material world, but you are trying to reach the divine. So the realm that is between material and divine, that realm is the Bhuvarloga. So you can say it's a bridge between earthly duties and higher ideals. So you have to perform your duties in your world. At the same time, you are associated with higher ideals. That loga is called Bhuvarloga. This loga also is mentioned as the loga of Siddhas, Charanas, Vidyadharas, and other musicians, or great musicians, all these subtle beings in the world. they reside in this Bhuvarloka. So that was Bhuvarloka. Again, this is a subtle loga. This is not the gross loga. So Burloga was a gross loga, gross consciousness. Bhuvarloka is a subtle we cannot. It is subtle in nature. It is not gross. It not something that we can. Gross is something that we can feel and touch and see. Subtle is not the one that we can directly touch or feel. It is a subtle loga, as we saw before. We have, remember when we said the three bodies. We have a gross body, we have a subtle body, and we have a karana, causal body, right? So this is a subtle body, subtle loga. And this Bhuvar loga is associated with the Swadhisthana chakra of our body. Then we have Swar loga. Swar loga is the realm, is the heavenly realm. Swarga is the heavenly realm. It is the abode of Devas, and it is ruled by Indra. We know this loga. We know about this loga. It is, so remember in the last dashakam we said Bhagavan created the deities that preside over the Jnanendriyas, right? The deities that preside over our Jnanendriyas, or Karmendriyas, and the Andhakaranas. He created 14 deities, right? And they came from the Sattvika Ahangara of Bhagavan, Vaigarika Ahangara. Those deities, remain in this loga. They preside over this loga, or they live in this loga, which is the Swar loga. This Swarloka is a realm of pleasure, beauty, and divine enjoyment. So what does that mean? So if you do good karma, if you practice good karma, and if you have devotion, you will end up in this loga. You will end up in this Swarloka. But many a times, people then forget about their good karmas and their devotion, and they enjoy in this Swarloka. When that happens, they have to again go back to the lower logas and come back. So this realm, Swarloka, is a realm of pleasure, beauty, and divine enjoyment. However, it is temporary. You won't be able to stay in this loga forever. This pleasure and beauty and divine enjoyment is not forever. So it is a temporary loga. You will get Swarga as a reward for your dharmic life. If you do a dharmic life, you end up in this Swarloga, but it is a temporary loga. So it is, therefore, you have to go back to the chakra again of cycle of birth and death. So that's why this Swarloga is not the loga that we should actually aim for. The loga that we have said this before also in our previous dashakam. So the loga that we should aim for is the Satya Loga, Brahma Loga, which is the Loga, the abode of Bhagavan Brahma, and beyond that is Vaigundam. So that is the Loga that we should aim for. So Swar Loga, as we saw here, is the realm of Devas, and this Loga is associated with the Manipura Chakra of our body. And as I said, it is an impermanent Loga. So in this, Dashakam, in this Loga, Bhattathiri addressed several of these logas. He spoke about the lower logas, Taladala, Sudala, Pidala, Adala, and he also spoke about the three upper logas, Bhuloga, Bhuvarloga, and Swarloga, as part of Bhagavan's body. We'll continue from here in Sloka 3.
ग्रीवामहस्तव मुखं च जनस्तपस्तु फालं शिरस्तव समस्तमयस्य सत्यम् एवं जगन्मयतनो जगदाश्रितैरपि अन्यैर्निबद्धवपुषे भगवन्नमस्ते. നിന്തിരുവടിയുടെ കഴുത്ത് മഹർലോകവും മുഖം ജനലോകവും നെറ്റിത്തടമാകട്ടെ തപോലോകവും സർവസ്വരൂപനായ അവിടുത്തെ ശിരസ് സത്യലോകവുമാകുന്നു. അല്ലയോ ജഗദ്രൂപമായ ശരീരത്തോടു കൂടിയ ഭഗവാനെ, ഇപ്രകാരം ലോകത്തിലുള്ള മറ്റു വസ്തുക്കളാലും കൽപ്പിക്കപ്പെട്ട ശരീരത്തോടു കൂടിയ നിന്തിരുവടിക്ക് നമസ്കാരം.
So Bhattathiri in this loga is describing the next set of logas as Bhagavan's body. He says, Griva Mahaha Tava. Griva means neck. Griva Mahaha Tava. Your neck is Mahar Loga. Griva is neck portion. So we heard the term Hayagriva, right? Hayagriva is a form of Bhagavan. Haya means horse, and Griva means somebody who has the neck, the face and neck of a horse. That is why it's called Hayagriva. So just like that, Griva Mahaha Tava, your neck region of Bhagavan, your neck region is Mahar Loga. Mugam cha janaha, your face, Bhagavan's face is Janaloga, thy face is Janaloga. Tabaha tu phalam, your forehead, phalam is Tabologa indeed. So Bhagavan's forehead is Tabologa. Shira tava samasta mayasya satyam. Shiraha, the head of Bhagavan, tava samasta mayasya, of who knows everything. Bhagavan is the one who knows everything and who is everything. So therefore Bhattacharya is saying Bhagavan's head, and you Bhagavan who is everything that we see around, your head is Satyam, is Satyaloka. Satyaloka is the abode of Lord Brahma. Hey Jaganmayatano Bhagavan, O Lord, whose body is the universe, so which we have been emphasizing throughout in this Dashakam. The universe that we see and the universe that we cannot see, all of this is nothing but Bhagavan's body. Hey Jaganmayatano Bhagavan, O Lord, whose body is the universe. Evam, in this manner, Jagadasridaihi Abhi Anyaihi Nibadda Babushe, whose body is conceived as made up of all the other things forming the universe. So this body of Bhagavan, or essentially everything that we see around as the universe, is nothing but Bhagavan's body. And that is said in the reverse way here, whose body is conceived as made up of all the other things forming the universe. So everything that is there that forms the universe, they combine to form Bhagavan's body, or the reverse is the truth. That is, Bhagavan's body is what is reflecting as everything that we see around. Namahate, salutations to thee. So salutations to you, Bhagavan, who is reflecting, who is shining as the universe, and who has everything that we can perceive and we cannot perceive. Everything that is around is your body and as the universe, and that Bhagavan, salutations to thee. So Bhattacharya in this loga addressed Maharloga, Janaloga, Tabologa and Satyaloga, the next upper logas, where he started off with Maharloga. Maharloga is the loga that is above Swarloga. Maharloga is the realm of great sages. So great sages like Bhrigu Maharshi and other sages reside in this loga. So again, when we describe this loga, associated with the consciousness level of these individuals, the beings that reside in this loga. So this is a realm of great sages such as Bhrigu Maharshi. So this loga is associated with deep meditation and contemplation. That is what dominates this loga. There is minimal material distraction in this loga. It's a loga of high spiritual awareness. So every being in this loga, they are highly spiritually associated, and they are in that high awareness, spiritually aware, and they transcend any ordinary desire that a human has, or the normal desires that we have. They have transcended all that, and is always in that consciousness. They are associated with Bhagavan, who is the pure consciousness. They are trying to attain that pure consciousness, so they are always in that contemplative state in meditation. So this loga is the Anahata chakra. So the heart center, the Anahata chakra of our body, is the chakra where when you actually fully are in immersion with Bhagavan through devotion and through practice of yoga or any of these processes that we have described before, this is the first chakra that gets activated, and Maharloga is a representative of our Anahata chakra. So further, Bhattacharya describes Janaloga, the loga that is above Maharloga. So Janaloga. Now one more thing I forgot to mention, Maharloga. We have seen Maharloga in our Dashakam 4 as well. When Bhattacharya described dissolution, Bhattacharya said that when the pralaya happens, when dissolution happens, that is when the Naimatika pralaya happens after one kalpa of Brahma, the beings in this Maharloga, they move to the upper logas, to Janaloga and other upper logas, because the fire coming from Adishesha will engulf the three lower logas, Bur, Bhuvar and Swarloga. And when that happens, the fire also affects the beings in this Maharloga. So therefore, they go to the upper logas of Janaloga and others. So Janaloga, the loga that is above Maharloga, it is a realm of the mind-born sons of Brahma. The sons of Brahma that is born from Brahma's own mind, they reside in this Janaloga, which includes sages like Sanaga, Sanandana, Sanadana, Sanat Kumara. These are great sages, and other great sages and devotees who have reached that level or of that status, they reside in this Janaloga. So this Janaloga is representative of pure wisdom. The beings in this loga is represented as beings with pure wisdom. The sloga also represents purity. So this is a loga that filters impurity. So any being that is in this loga, they are able to filter out all the impurities before they, that goes into their body. So that loga represents beings which are highly pure, and therefore it is able to filter impurities. This loga also represents detachment from lower material desires. It is an extremely subtle loga, and it is filled with spiritual inquiry and realization. So that is the representation of Jana loga. And this Jana loga is associated with the Vishuddha chakra of our body, which is our throat center. And we know the story of Bhagavan Shiva, who drank the Kalakuda Visham, and Parvati Devi held his neck. So that poison was held in Bhagavan's throat, because essentially saying that this chakra, Vishuddha chakra, is able to dissolve or eliminate all impurities, all poison, and prevent it from entering into the lower loga. So if the poison, Bhagavan had engulfed the poison, then it would have gone to the lower logas and affected the bur loga and bhuvar loga and all the other lower logas. So to avoid that poison was held at the Vishuddha chakra. So therefore this chakra or this loga essentially represents purity, which can filter out impurities. So that is the representation of Jana loga. Then the loga just above that is Tabo loga. Tabo loga is the realm of tabas, of penance. So advanced, ascetics and yogis, perfected yogis, they reside in Tabo loga. So it's above Jana loga. And this loga is a loga of intense tabas. Tabas is austerity, and tabas also results in taba, which is heat, generated. So this loga has high taba or heat of spiritual brilliance. So spiritual heat is there in this loga. So it's immense of spiritual power. The beings in this loga is deeply absorbed in Bhagavan, in Brahman, and therefore they are highly purified and concentrated spiritual energy. So the beings who have reached that state, they are in this Tabo loga. Again, this Tabo loga is associated with the Ajna chakra of our body. And then we have finally the most highest loga in the 14 logas, which is Satya loga. Satya loga is the highest material realm. So all these logas are material logas because they are in the Brahmanda, which is created with Bhagavan in using Panchabhutas, Panchatanmatras, and the Devadas and all that. So this and the Maya of Bhagavan. So therefore, all of this is material logas, but the highest material realm is the abode of Lord Brahma, which is Satya loga. So Satya loga, Satya means truth, and truth is Bhagavan. So therefore, it's the realization of the ultimate truth. So that is Satya loga. It's also called Brahma loga. In this loga, there is extraordinary knowledge, which is knowledge of Brahman. Knowledge of Bhagavan happens in this loga. And when a being that has reached this loga, for that being, there is no duality. It is in that Advaita Bhava, because it is one with, it has the understanding that I and Bhagavan are nothing, we are the same. So that Advaita Bhavam, the non-dual nature, the non-duality exists in this loga. And however, we know that even Brahma loga, it is a material creation. It's a material loga, and it also dissolves during pralaya. We have said that in the last dashakam. So when the pragrita pralaya happens after 100 years of Brahmadeva's life, this Satya loga also dissolves into Bhagavan, and then in the next creation, a new Satya loga and a new Brahma, is created by Bhagavan. So this is also a loga that is material in nature, but it is the highest spiritual realm, and where we can attain Bhagavan, where you are in one with that awareness, in that consciousness. That is the Satya loga. And this Satya loga is represented as the Sahasrara chakra, or the Brahma chakra of our chakra, the chakras that we have seen. So in this sloga, Bhattathiri discussed the 14 logas, which and he described them as the body of Bhagavan, the Virat Purusha, as Guruvayoorappan's body, where he had all the 14 logas, starting with Padala, Rasadala, Mahadala, Taladala, Sudala, Vidala, Adala, and then Bhuloga, Bhuvarloga, Swarloga, Maharloga, Janaloga, Tabologa, and Satyaloga, as essentially part of Bhagavan's body. And the key message is that all of this and all the experiences, all the beings, everything that we see and that we experience and that we cannot comprehend also, they all come from Bhagavan only. That is the key message. And from the lower logas, that we need to understand that if you are not in remembrance with Bhagavan, you are in bondage with the world. However, if you are in remembrance with Bhagavan, any of these bondages, that even if you have bondages, you understand that it's coming from Bhagavan, and you will be in a path towards realization of Bhagavan. You will be towards moksha, as we described in the process that we just saw. So that is the key message of this Virat Purusha and the 14 logas. Going on to the next sloka of Dashakam 5. Section 6. Yeah.
त्वद्ब्रह्मरन्ध्रपदमीश्वर विश्वकन्द छन्दांसि केशवघनास्तव केशपाशाः उल्लासि चिल्लियुगलं द्रुहिणस्य गेहम् पक्ष्माणि रात्रिदिवसौ सविता च नेत्रे പ്രപഞ്ചത്തിനു കാരണഭൂതനും നിയന്താവുമായ ഭഗവാനെ, അവിടുത്തെ സുഷുമ്നാഗ്രഭാഗം വേദങ്ങളാകുന്നു. ഹേ കേശവ, നിന്തിരുവടിയുടെ വിശേഷപ്പെട്ട തലമുടി മേഘങ്ങളാകുന്നു. ഉല്ലസിച്ചിയങ്ങുന്ന പുരികക്കൊടികൾ ബ്രഹ്മാവിന്റെ ആസ്ഥാനവും കൺപോളകൾ രാപ്പകലുകളും കണ്ണുകൾ സൂര്യനുമാകുന്നു.
So Bhattathiri now describes in this sloka, so in the last 3 slokas, Bhattathiri described the 14 worlds, the 14 logas as Bhagavan's body. Now in this slokas and the next several slokas, Bhattathiri is describing the things that we see or that we experience, and he associates that as part of Bhagavan's body. So he says, Hey Ishvara, Hey Vishwakanda, Hey Lord, who is the source of the universe. As we just saw, he is the one from which the universe reflects or manifests. So he is the source of the universe, and who is the cause of the universe, that is Bhagavan. Hey Ishvara. But there he says, Tvat Brahmarandra Padam, your Brahmarandra area. So we have seen Brahmarandra before. Brahmarandra is the orifice that is on the crown of our head, and that is believed to be that is the passage, that is the one that connects Ajna Chakra to Sahasrara. And we have discussed this before. Beings who are realized, their soul exit the body through the Brahmarandra. We have seen that also in Dashakam 4. So the Brahmarandra area of Bhagavan is what it says is Chandamsi, is the Vedas. So all knowledge, Vedas represents all knowledge that is needed to realize Bhagavan. All knowledge that we need to realize the Brahman or Bhagavan is represented as Vedas, and that Vedas are Bhagavan's Brahmarandra or the Sahasrara. The Brahmarandra also represents Sahasrara Chakra. That is the knowledge when we are one with Bhagavan. So that is in the Brahmarandra area, and that is represented as the Vedas. That is all knowledge that we need to realize Bhagavan is represented as Vedas in Bhagavan's Brahmarandra area. Now, further, Bhattathiri continues. Hey Keshava, Bhattathiri says, so he uses the word Keshava. Keshava has several meanings. One is that Keshava also is Narayana, who is one who reposes or rests in the Karana Jalam, causal waters. That's one meaning. Keshava is the one who killed demon Keshi. So there is a demon named Keshi, and the one who destroyed the demon Keshi is Keshava. Keshava also means the one who has the powers of Brahma and Rudra and Vishnu. So essentially the one who has the tejas of all of them, because all of them are same. All of them are one only, Bhagavan. So the one who has the tejas of Brahma and Rudra, Brahma is Ka. We have seen before Kaha is Brahma and Rudra is Isha, Ishara. So E, Ka and E. So the one who has the tejas of Brahma and Rudra is Keshava. It also means the one who eradicates klesha. If you have suffering, and the one who eradicates those sufferings in our life, that is also Keshava. So one who eradicates klesha is Keshava. And finally, it also means the one who has beautiful hair. So beautiful hair locks, the one who has beautiful hair locks, that is also Keshava. So here Bhattathiri is describing Bhagavan's hair. So all of these meanings can be implied for Bhagavan. And here Bhattathiri is describing that, Hey Keshava, Ganaha tava kesha pashaha, your kesha pasham, your wonderful locks of hair, your hair the beautiful locks of hair that you have are the dark clouds that we see. So he is associating everything that we see around as part of Bhagavan's body. So he says the Keshapasham of yours is the dark clouds that we see. Again, this, if you see, it is a Padadi Kesha Varnana of Bhagavan, of Guruvayoorappan, that is happening in the last several slokas. Now Bhattathiri is continuing. Ullasi Chilli Yugalam, your splendorous two eyebrows, the eyebrows of Bhagavan, Druhinasya Geham, are the abode of Brahma. So Brahma, we know that Brahma is in the Satyaloka, which is represented by the top portion of the head is the Brahmaloka, Satyaloka. However, the abode of Brahma is mentioned as the eyebrows of Bhagavan. The movement, so Brahmadeva is Rajasic in nature because he has to do creation. So creation is Rajasic in nature, and the movement of the eyebrows is represented as Rajasic. So Rajasic nature is given to the movement of eyebrows. So that's why the movement of Bhagavan's eyebrows is mentioned as Rajasic or associated with Rajasic nature. That's why it said that the eyebrows of Bhagavan is the abode of Brahmadeva. Pakshmani Ratri Divasauhu, the eyelashes, Bhagavan's beautiful eyelashes, the upper and lower eyelashes, they are night and day. So Bhagavan's eyelashes are essentially night and day. Again, you can see it's opposites, night and day. So all good and bad, positive and negative, all the opposites exist in Bhagavan. That is the key message. Everything that we see around as good and bad and positive and negative, all of that is part of Bhagavan only. And Bhagavan is dispassionate and not associated with any of that. That is the key point here. So night and day are Bhagavan's eyelashes. Ratri Divasau Pakshmani. And Bhattacharya then says, Savidacha Netre. Bhagavan's Netram, Bhagavan's eyes are the sun. So Savidacha Netre, the eyes of Bhagavan is essentially the sun that we see. So here Bhattacharya is describing whatever we see around in the physical world to Bhagavan's body. So the Brahmarandra area is the knowledge, all knowledge that we can think of to understand Bhagavan, represented through the Vedas. That's Bhagavan's Brahmarandra area. The eyebrows of Bhagavan are the abode of Brahmadeva, which is showing creation. The eyelashes of Bhagavan is representing night and day. So all opposites, night and day represents also opposites. That is in Bhagavan's eyelashes. Savidacha Netre, sun, which is the source of power for all of us, is represented as Bhagavan's sun. And that is what in this sloka. Now going on to sloka number 5, describing the next features.
निःशेष विश्वरचना च कटाक्षमोक्षः कर्णौ दिशोऽश्वियुगलं तव नासिके द्वे लोभत्रपेज भगवन्नधरोत्तरोष्ठौ तारागणाश्च दशना शमनश्च दंष्ट्रा. അല്ലേ ഭഗവാനെ, നിന്തിരുവടിയുടെ ലീലാകടാക്ഷങ്ങൾ മുഴുവൻ ലോകത്തിൻ്റെയും സൃഷ്ടിക്രിയയാകുന്നു. ചെവികൾ ദിക്കുകളും 2 നാസാദ്വാരങ്ങൾ അശ്വിനി ദേവന്മാരും മേലും കീഴുമുള്ള ചുണ്ടുകൾ യഥാക്രമം ലോഭവും ലജ്ജയും പല്ലുകൾ നക്ഷത്രജാലവും ദംഷ്ട്ര യമനുമാകുന്നു.
So Bhattacharya continues in this sloka, and this will be the last sloka that we will take up today. We will continue from sloka 6 in our next session. So in sloka 5, Bhattacharya says, Hey Bhagavan, hey Lord. So we have seen in the first Dashakam who can be qualified as Bhagavan. Bhagavan is the one who has the 6 qualities, 6 auspicious qualities, which includes Aishwarya, Virya, Yashas, Sri. Sri is beauty and also Lakshmi Devi. So Sri, Jnana and Vairagya. So the one who possesses all of these, and that is only Bhagavan who possesses all of this. That is why he is called Bhagavan. Hey Bhagavan, or Lord, he says, Tava Kadaksha Mokshaha, your glance, Bhagavan's glance is Nishesha Vishwa Rajanacha, is the act of creation of the whole universe. So if you remember in the first Dashakam, we have said that Bhagavan's Ikshanam, we also saw that in Dashakam 4. Ikshanam is Bhagavan's one glance. With Bhagavan's one glance, all the universe is created. That because they are all latent in Bhagavan, and just with Bhagavan's Icha, with Bhagavan's one glance, the whole creation happened. So Tava Kadaksha Mokshaha, your Kadaksham, your glance is the creation of the whole universe that we see, the whole universe, which includes the 14 logas and all the other logas. As we said, there is infinite such Brahmandas that Bhagavan creates. So, and Bhagavan is there in all those logas. So therefore, the act of creation of the whole universe is Bhagavan's Kadaksham Moksha, your glance. And Bhattacharya further says, Karnau Dishaha, your ears, Bhagavan's ears are the directions. Your ears represent directions. If you remember in our last Dashakam, we said the directions, Dik Devadas, right? Dik Devadas, they preside over our ears, right? And the ears represent the Panchabhuta of space, right? And the Panchabhuta of space is associated with the Pancha Tanmatra of sound. So the ears, basically ears represents sound, and it also represents the Panchabhuta space, and the Devadas for das are the Dik Devadas. And here it is said that your ears, Bhagavan, is the direction, are the directions. So here Bhattacharya is representing not just the directions, it also represents the infinite space that we can imagine. That is also represented by Bhagavan's ears. And space, as we said last time, space is nothing but all the infinite possibilities that we can imagine in the universe, right? That is represented by the Panchabhuta space. It is not just the physical space that we see. Space also represents, space technically represents the infinite possibilities that we have in the universe with Bhagavan's grace. That is represented by space, and that is associated with directions, Dik Devadas. And that directions are Bhagavan's ears. The ears of Bhagavan represents the directions. Tava nasige dve, your two nostrils, Bhagavan's two nostrils are the Ashviyugalam, the two Ashwini Devadas. So again, this also is something we discussed last time. The Ashwini Devadas are the Devadas, Nasatya and Dasra, who are the sons of, they are the sons of Lord Sun, and with Sanjana Devi, the sons of them are Ashwini Devas, and they are Nasati and Dasra. They are represented as physicians of Devas. They represent health, and they also, if you remember, the Ashwini Devadas, they preside over nose. Our Jnanendriya of nose is ruled by Ashwini Devadas, and the Jnanendriya of nose is associated with Prithvi Tattvam, if you remember, right? So Ashwini Devadas, Nasati and Dasra are Bhagavan's two nostrils, and therefore it also represents not just the nostrils, it is also representative of the ability to smell here, and the Prithvi Tattvam also is associated with Bhagavan's nose here. Next, Bhattacharya says, Adara Uttara Oshtau, thy lower and upper lips, Bhagavan's lower and upper lips, they represent Lobatrabecha, are greed and modesty. So greed and modesty are represented by Bhagavan's lower and upper lips. Again, if you see here, greed and modesty are two different opposites, right? Greed and modesty. So it's both positive and negative. So everything that you see around as positive and negative, they are all in Bhagavan only. So we cannot say that Bhagavan is the divine thing and there is a demon. In our dharma, there is nothing like that. Everything is in Bhagavan, and Bhagavan is dispassionate to all of it. Bhagavan doesn't attach to any of it. It is the bhavam in which we approach Bhagavan, and that is how Bhagavan responds back to us. So that bhavam is important, and Bhagavan gives moksha to all of us, all the beings who reach him, right? So it is not like only the devotees are getting moksha. Even the ones who are enemies of Bhagavan, who do dvesha to Bhagavan, they are also blessed by Bhagavan, and Bhagavan gives moksha to them. So therefore, the opposites also reside in Bhagavan. Modesty and greed are two opposites. All the opposites in the universe, they exist in Bhagavan, and they are part of Bhagavan, and therefore Bhagavan encompasses everything. He has everything in him, right? And however, he is not attached to any of it. That is a key thing of Bhagavan. So your lower and upper lips are greed and modesty. As an example, we'll see that. So if we know the story that Bhagavan is the one who came as a savior of Prahlada, right? He's the one who saved Prahlada. He's the same one who also came as the enemy of Hiranyakashipu, right? So the same Bhagavan, it is the same Bhagavan who has both the bhavas. So therefore, everything uh, exists in Bhagavan, and it is up to how we approach Bhagavan, how the way he will respond back to us. And he essentially gives moksha to everyone. That is, it is not just to only his devotees, to everyone Bhagavan gives moksha. So Bhattacharya further continues, Dashanaha, your teeth, Bhagavan's teeth are the galaxy of stars. So the universe, we just said the universe that we see or the universe that we know is an act of creation of Bhagavan through his glance. And the different galaxies of stars that we can imagine, they are all part of Bhagavan's teeth. So Bhagavan's teeth are the galaxy of stars. And Shamanaha cha damstra. Bhagavan's molars are the yama. So Bhagavan's molar teeth is the one that we use to crush food, right? Molar teeth. So Bhagavan essentially crushes the all the evil beings, right? All the evilness in us, Bhagavan crushes it with the molar. So he is essentially the yama. So the Yamadeva, the Lord of Death, is also Bhagavan, right? As I just said in the example, Bhagavan is the friend and is a savior of Prahlada. He came as a savior and of Bhakta Prahlada, but at the same time, he came as the Yama for Hiranyakashipu, right? So Bhagavan has both, and therefore the molas of Bhagavan is represented as Yamadeva, through which Bhagavan crushes all the evil in the universe. And so all of these are essentially part of Bhagavan's body. So in this sloga number 5, Bhattacharya was discussing the Virat Purusha, and today's session, what we discussed today, Bhattacharya, in the first 3 slogas, we described the 14 logas. Bhattacharya described how the 14 logas are part of Bhagavan. We saw that. And in the next 2 slogas, Bhattacharya also spoke about the things that we see around as also part of Bhagavan. The Vedas are Bhagavan's Brahmarandra area. The dark clouds are Bhagavan's hair locks. The eyebrows are the abode of Lord Brahma. The eyelashes are day and night and also represents all opposites that all exist in Bhagavan. The eyes of Bhagavan is the sun, the source of our power. The ears of Bhagavan represents the different directions, also representing the space and infinite possibilities. The nostrils are Bhagavan are the Ashwini Devadas. The lips of Bhagavan also represents greed and modesty, which again shows all opposites exist in Bhagavan. The teeth of Bhagavan is the stars, and the molas of Bhagavan is Yama, death. So Bhagavan is everything that we can imagine. That is what this sloga is emphasizing. And here, Bhattacharya is describing the Virat Purusha. So the key message, as I said before in the beginning of this sloga and whatever we have discussed so far, is that all of this are part of Bhagavan. Everything that we see and we experience are coming from Bhagavan only. If we have that knowledge and if we turn towards Bhagavan, we will be free of bondages and we will be free of all fears that we can imagine. However, if we are not associating it with Bhagavan, if you are not turning towards Bhagavan, we will be like the beings in the lower logas who are devoid of Bhagavan's grace and are in total bondage with the material pleasures outside. Right? So that is the key message of the Virat Purusha Varnana till now. In the next session, we will continue from Sloga 6, where Bhattacharya continues discussing the rest of the creation and how they are part of Bhagavan's body. So with that, we end today's session. Uh, Before we end, we would like to say that if there were any mistakes from our part, we would like to apologize to Bhagavan and to everyone who has joined. We submit this Dashakam, this session, to the holy feet of our Ponnu Guruvayoorappan. Narayana Gila Bhagavan Namaste Guruvayurappa.